This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with Bruce Hutchin, episode number 007.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutchin.
On today's show, we have Doug Linebaugh that talks about being persistent, keeping it simple, watching your win, and hey, vote for Doug and Trophy Addiction on The Search.
Hi, everybody out there in Whitetail Rendezvous community. I am truly excited and frankly honored to have Linebaugh of Trophy Addictions. He is found on the Pursuit channel on DirectTV and Dish, and he's got some exciting information that he's going to share right now about what happened last night. Doug, welcome to the show.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, tell us what happened last night.
Well, we're actually on one of the small groups that are featured on a show called The Search. It's on the Pursuit channel, on through either Dish or DirectTV. And it's 8 teams vying for their own spot on the Pursuit channel. So it's a reality TV show contest. So last night was the second week of The Search, but it was our first time being featured on there for video. So our show aired last night. We had a nice watch party. It went really, really well. We have some great sponsors like Moultrie and Horny Buck Seed Company and those kind of on the social media side. They really shared our page and got us a lot of votes, and we're in it to win it. So we've got 12 more weeks, and we'll see who the winner is.
Well, that's exciting, and through our interview today, Doug will be talking more about that. Let's talk about your passion for whitetail deer and the genesis of Trophy Addiction.
Well, for as long as I grew up on a farm, kind of an odd note to my whitetail adventures. Growing up on a farm, a very large farm, never hunted that much. Just never did until I was in college. And some friends of mine started hunting, and to me, I thought it was interesting. So I got into the hunting with deer first, and it grew from there. Now we hunt all species, but whitetail has been by far my all-time favorite. About 4 years ago, we were approached by a company out of Arkansas to do some filming, be featured as one of their teams. That didn't go very well. They never made it nationally. And they were about to go under, so we bought the company, and we renamed it Trophy Addiction 2 years ago. And our whole goal is to video our hunts so that we can, at one day in the future, be on national TV, and that's where we were last night. But our featured 2 deer last night, or 2 hunts last night, were 2 whitetail. And in fact, the next 2 shows we have are going to be whitetail because that's primarily what we hunt.
Give us some background on how it led up. We've got a lot of listeners that saying, holy fright, national TV, man, what a goal, what an opportunity. Let's unpack the background of really how you got to that point last night where you were on a national platform.
Persistency. Ask me all the time, says they ask, how did you develop this and how did you get to this point? And I can tell them it's just being persistent, doing what you love to do. And we're doing it a little bit different than most people. Most people out there, they think they want to be on TV or they want to do something special and video their hunts, and they dump a lot of money and a lot of time into it. And it doesn't, as you guys know out there in the whitetail world, it doesn't work out that well. I manage about 10,000 acres, and I killed 1 deer last year, 1 whitetail. And, they put a lot of money and all the efforts into a website and all this, and they come out with maybe 1 or 2 videos, and it plummets from there. And we've done it a little bit differently. We actually did it for the fun purpose. And I'll tell you, if you have kids, that's kind of what helped us out tremendously in the beginning, because once you record your son's first kill or your daughter's first kill on video, and now instead of going to grandpa and your friends and your family and telling them the story, now you can show them the story, how it unfolds. I think I've seen some of my kids' footage probably hundreds of times, showing it to different people. So once you get that taste for it, then you're going to do it all the time. But we didn't do it with an intention of being on national TV right from the beginning. We did it to learn. And so over the last 3 years, we've got about, I think, 80 videoed hunts from Alaska to Africa. And now we're at a point to where we're comfortable with what we're doing, and I think what we're doing is good enough to be on national TV.
Thank you for sharing that, and hope I took some notes, and hope our listeners are, because it's not easy. It's never easy to have success. You have to work at it. And the part I'm interested in talking more about is the kids. You mentioned them a couple of times, just setting memories forever of your children's first hunt, first kill. I think people miss that.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of what we do. My son is 14 years old. I've got a daughter that's getting ready to turn 20. Every hunt they've ever been on has been videoed. So not only do you have the joy of being able to show that footage to other people, but you also get the joy of spending the time in the woods with your kids, teaching them from just the littlest of things. You can be there from the very, very beginning of when it starts to teach them to hunt the right way, safety the right way. And by the way, if they get lucky enough to harvest an animal, you get to get them on video too. So that's a huge part of what we started, and we still do it today.
Now, do you reach out to other groups in Missouri and invite other fathers, mothers to bring their kids out, or what's your stance on
actually. When we even very, very in the very beginning, when we were just a team on a different show out of Arkansas, even though we didn't own it, didn't have anything to do with it, we still had our name. And we decided to give away a few hunts. We were fortunate enough that we've got some good landowners and good farmers, and we lease about 5,000 acres in Missouri. And we've got more land than we can hunt. We've got several different farms. And so I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we gave away a hunt at a Whitetails Unlimited banquet. One of the biggest ones in the country is in Columbia, Missouri, ran by a good friend of mine, Dan Vogt, who is the director of the year. He runs, I think, 6 or 7 states for Whitetails Unlimited. And we gave that hunt away, and it went for the most money at a Whitetails event, and we were so proud of that. A lady that we're now great friends with bought it, and she bought it and then gave it away to the crowd. To a kid, a deserving kid, a young girl won it. And so that's been a tradition of ours ever since, that we give away hunts. We give away 2 turkey hunts and 2 deer hunts every year, 4 auctions. In fact, we're giving one away this Saturday night at a Rainbow House event in Columbia, Missouri. And Rainbow House is a house meant for troubled youths looking for a place to stay, even adults. They need a place to stay for a night or a week. They can go there. And so we're giving away a youth hunt this weekend, and it's important to us to give away youth hunts because adults, for the most part, can afford to go hunt, whether it's public land or a lease or, a guide. Kids, however, some of those kids can't. And so teaming up with other individuals that like to purchase our hunts has been a blessing for us because, well, in fact, this weekend, not only are we giving away a youth hunt this weekend, but we gave away 2 youth hunts, turkey hunts last year. And we're taking 2 youths this weekend, and my son, to 2 kids that have never killed an animal in their life, and we're going to videotape the hunt for them. We're so excited. I'm just sitting here taking notes, one on the lady who bought the hunt, then gave it away.
That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen of the Whitetail Rendezvous community. People just stepping up and saying, hey, kids are important. And, Doug, I just salute you for what you're doing, for kids, because that's our future. Yes. Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's gotten us to meet a lot of good people in the industry. The Drury's, Mark and Terry Drury. Not so much Terry, but Mark is a big involvement in our community because he lives so close. And it was last year, 2014, that the same lady was competing against the Drury's for our Kansas hunt. It was a youth hunt in Kansas that we put on last year. And she was competing against one of the guys from Bow Madness, who's now a really good friend of ours, Brandon Jennings and Brick Stewart. They're one of the teams on Bow Madness, and she kept
bidding against him, and she finally won because she will never be outbid on a kid's hunt. As soon as she won that hunt, she gave it to the guy she was bidding against for his son. So we were lucky enough to meet Brick and Brandon from Bo Madness and take them. Not only did we take their son, who missed a giant deer in Kansas, on film, but we also invited Brandon and Brick back to our farm, and they both killed on video, and you'll see those on Bo Madness and on one of the Drury's TV shows this next year. And we took his son turkey hunting in Nebraska 2 weeks ago. We're going to meet him again in 2 weeks. He missed it 30 yards with the bow. So we're excited to have him back in camp in Nebraska turkey hunting. And these events, these auctions, you know, a lot of people like to go buy stuff and you know, help out the organization, whether it be Whitetails Unlimited, which is one of our favorites. But I'll tell you what, the money and the camaraderie that people get from the hunts that are given away, and it's priceless. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. We've met some of our best friends in the hunting industry at those events.
Well, listeners, again, Doug's paying it forward, and if you're in the business, you're a writer, you're a personality, you're TV producer, think about what Doug just shared with us, because it's important for our hunting tradition. And and Doug said it, and I'll just echo it, it's priceless for these kids. Thank you. Let's move right along, and let's talk about a couple aha moments. You know, you can't figure something out, and it's just not coming together, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes on, or you go, holy Frank, there's the answer. Let's share a couple of those, Doug.
Well, one of my biggest aha moments was actually not about how to hunt the whitetail. It was where to hunt the whitetail. I took my son to school. This has been probably 6-7 years ago. I would take him on the same path every single day to school, obviously. And one day, I was in a suit and tie back in the day when I used to wear that. I was in a suit and tie, and I was taking my son to school. And for whatever reason, I've never done this before, and I haven't done it after. I don't know why, but I missed the turn. I was thinking about something else, probably deer hunting. And I went down a street. By the way, we're in the middle of town. And I went down a street, and I looked over, and Connor looked over. He says, "Dad, look at that buck." And there was this huge non-typical buck standing in a little public place there in town in the middle of Columbia, Missouri. And I thought, wow, look at the size of that buck. I knew who owned the property, and it's legal to shoot a bow in the city limits. I knew that because I live at the edge of town. And so I knew it would be legal to take that deer, and I tried to get on that deer, and I couldn't. I actually went back later that day. He was bedded down there. That was my aha moment. I'm out chasing whitetails in farmland, and sometimes just in Missouri you can drive 2 and 3 and 4 hours to some hunting spots, and some of the best deer we found are right here in the city limits of Columbia. And you know, they have shows about it now, public town, you know, city limits hunting, things like that. But we've been doing that for about 6 years now, and I'll tell you what, some of the biggest whitetails that we've ever seen videoed have come from right in the city limits, and it's an untapped type of hunting. And some people will argue with me, and they say that, oh, those deer, they're tame, they know people. I beg to differ. I've missed a chance at one of the biggest bucks of my life on video in town, and he was smarter than any buck that I've encountered out in the woods. So that kind of hunting to me is fun. It's I've got a family, and so, you know, I'm gone a lot. So when it comes to the whitetail season, you know, it starts here September 15th and goes through January 15th. Traveling, you know, a couple hours away to hunt every weekend can put a strain on the family. And when I can just drive 2 miles down the road and go behind my buddy's house and hunt with a bow for whitetails, that's a huge plus for my family. Not to mention, by the way, you know, these bucks are in town. They're not chased by guns, so they get to grow up and be mature whitetails.
Without giving any trade secrets away, can we unpack that a little bit? Can we talk about, you know, how you take 20 acres, 10 acres, 5 acres, and get set up on what I'm going to say a Pope and Young or better buck?
To me, I think the biggest thing that I can let out of the bag as far as trying to find a good mature whitetail is you have to find where they're at. So many people concentrate on low dollar leases or public hunting land, which public hunting land is great. We still do hunting on public land, but you have to know where the big whitetails are. Sometimes, people will find scouting a field edge and they'll go lease the land and they'll put a lot of money into mineral and food plots and they don't have that much land to hunt, but they're hunting the edge of a piece of property, all for the benefit of someone else that's hunting the property behind them where all the deer stay. So what we do is in trying to find a big deer is we're going to the areas that matter. For instance, if I'm going to be hunting in Missouri, I'm hunting around the river bottoms. I'm hunting in the northern part of Missouri. You can get on a bigger deer in the southern part of Missouri, but we all know here in this area that the bigger bucks come from up north. So that's my biggest thing is finding the area. I can find 1,000 acres somewhere for the right price, but if it's not in an area where I think there's a potential for big bucks, I'm not going to waste time in hunting it. But that's just me. I'm a trophy hunter. To me, it's more about maturity. So, I'll shoot we had 2 on our hit list last year that were about 4-year-old deer. They were only 7 points. But I was going to shoot them first thing if I saw them because it's all about the age of an animal. So I think that would be my biggest secret is finding where they're at. We try to find areas where maybe there's a place that's posted no hunting. Maybe a farmer doesn't allow hunting, but people know that there's good deer on him. Instead of going around and doing the illegal thing and trying to trespass on the guy and trying to find, trying to get in on a piece of ground that maybe the guy, lives out of town. The better thing to do is try to find a property that butts up next to him. Get in with the farmer, get in with the landowner and ask them for permission. A lot of people just don't do that anymore. They don't knock doors. They're afraid to get a no. And that's what we do. That's what we've been doing. In fact, I knocked a few doors yesterday, on a piece of ground that I've been wanting to hunt for a while. And that's what you got to do. You got to get out there and find those areas that hold the good deer, and then you got to ask permission.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about for a minute something that happened last year that was unique or new, and you're going to implement it in your hunting strategies this year.
Well, I think the one thing that I will do differently this year in 2015 that I didn't last year, and you could have seen it on the show last night or when our show aired, it was actually one of those moments, was big bucks especially, the patterns change. The patterns change from their summer food plots and summer eating all to the fall, to the lull in October, and to obviously the rut, and then the late. I'm more of a rut, late season type of hunter. I like the cold. I don't like hunting when it's warm outside. I think I'm going to change a few things for next year because we're blessed to have Moultrie Cameras as one of our sponsors, and we have Moultries on every one of our farms, and we can pattern those bucks. And when those cameras go off and they say last year, for instance, we had a couple of bucks that were being seen on camera all the time. Now, it might have been 80, 90 degrees in September, but they were being seen a lot. And actually last night on the show, Nathan, my partner in the outfitting side of things, he killed one of those bucks. It was a mature 9-point. And the thing I'm going to change for next year is I'm going to start hunting a little bit more on the early season side. I've never been one to get in this deer stand September 15th just to be there. But I think next year I'm going to try to pattern those deer a little bit better like we have, and then try to get on them early in the season, because some of those bigger bucks you can kill early just like you can kill during the rut.
They're just in a different place. That's what I hear you saying.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, the place that he hunted and killed that deer last night on the show was he was in that place all summer long. And of course he killed him, I think it was on September 28th. And that particular farm, we don't see really any big deer activity from November on. They're just off that farm. They're chasing the does back in the timber. We don't see a lot of does on that early season, but that's where the big bucks, that's where they tend to live. In those areas where you wouldn't expect them. Some of the areas that you wouldn't expect, you can kill some.
I hope everybody's taking notes. What was the best whitetail hunting advice you got, and who gave it to you?
Well, the best advice I ever received was an actual saying. And quite honestly, I don't know where I heard it, but I heard it back when I first started really aggressively pursuing large whitetails. And now I pass that down to my kids, and in fact, I almost every single time we go hunting, I make my son say this. And it's he has to say it every time because sometimes it gets monotonous going out and hunting all the time and not getting anything. And that is that and I always mess it up too, especially when you put me on the spot. That's why they call it hunting and not killing, because it's hunting. Just because you're going hunting doesn't mean you're going to harvest an animal that day or that night. And that's the best advice that was ever given to me was that saying. And that being said, it lifts your spirits and it makes you keep going out into the woods, because if you're in it just to kill a big deer, you can go to a farm and kill a big deer. But if you're in it for the hunting part, which we are, videotaping and being out there with the turkeys gobbling and watching the deer. I've got some of the best video footage ever just from some of the smallest bucks I've ever encountered. And I'll share one of those stories with you. And so I guess the moral of that is that it's being out in the woods, having fun, hunting. If you get to kill something, that's awesome. But if you're just in it for the killing part, then, that to me is not as enjoyable. I'll tell you one story. We were in a stand 2 years ago, and we just got a sponsor from a tree stand company, Big Dog Tree Stands. They gave us a bunch of tree stands, and we got to the stand that morning, and my cameraman looked up, and he said, "Where's my seat?" And it had been cold and rainy, and he had to sit on a metal seat because his cushion was gone. We didn't know where it was. And I said, "I don't know, man. You're going to have to sit up there." And so he was sitting down, and we videotaped this little forkhorn. He came underneath of us, and we weren't going to shoot him. He was a young deer. He walked right underneath our stand, and we took the video off of him because we were done watching the deer, and we heard something. We didn't know what it was. We turned around, and this buck is like he's making a scrape, but he's doing it on top of the seat that had fallen.
Oh, no.
Down there at the edge. And he was pawing at this thing and playing with it to the point, all this on camera, to the point of where he got his rack down. And, in fact, Big Dog loves this because we sent it to him. He got his rack entangled in the seat. And so he's walking around in front of us with this seat in between his rack covering his eyes. He can't see anything. We can see a seat that says Big Dog right on it with his deer, walking around aimlessly trying to find out how to get this off his head. Now good news for the deer. It lasted about 3 or 4 minutes, but he finally got it off. But, those are the moments that I love because, not a lot of people can say they saw something like that, let alone we got it on video.
What a commercial for Big Dog.
Exactly.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, how could you couldn't put that together. It just had to happen, and you had to be there ready to film it.
Right, exactly.
And, folks, I hope you're hearing about the experience and the passion in Doug's voice, because he really loves what he's doing. I mean, you can just hear it. It's just there. We're getting close to the time to wrap up where you can share more about trophy addictions. But one more question. If somebody wants good information about whitetail hunting, and there's tons of information out on the net, where do you go, or your pro staff go, or your people go religiously to say, hey, I need to go to X to pick up some tips?
Well, tips, there's several different places. Now with the internet, you can just Google whitetail and find out anything that you want to know about them. There's a couple of books out there that I like. In particular, Mark and Terry Drury have a book out. It's a really good book. There's another one out there, a book I think it's Precision Hunting, and it's one of the better books that you'll ever read. You just look it up. That's one of the better books that you can get out there. One of the best tools that I use, and it's on the internet, and we use it religiously. You were asking what do we use. I don't know if it's a tip, but it's something that we rely on heavily, is Mossy Oak Scout Look. It's an app that you can get on your phone, and basically when you pull it up, it will pinpoint where you're at, like on a Google map. I'm sure you've seen this. And it knows where you're at, so it knows the wind for that day. So it'll show you, and we've preloaded our stand locations on that app. And so we're going out to the farm today, and we're going to a 400-acre parcel, and we're getting ready to hunt it. And you just hit that button, and it shows you where the wind pattern or the wind triangle is pushing that day. So you know, oh, okay, I can't hunt these stands because it's an east wind. I need to go to my east stand spots where I can hunt where the wind's not going to hurt me. That's one of the biggest things that we use. We're huge believers in scent control. If I was to give anyone one huge tip that's just trying to get into the whitetail world, scent control is your best buddy. If you can control your scent, do it. Anything that you can. There's no overdoing it when it comes to scent. But that scout look actually helps us, because even if we do our best scent control we're sponsored by Scent Blocker, they have great products, and we have spray, and all that stuff's good, but it's not foolproof and it's not 100%. So even with all of that, we won't go to a stand that's got the wrong wind. Even if we have all the precautions taken care of, we still stay out of there. You still want that wind blowing, and that Scout Look Mossy Oak app helps us tremendously.
And how do you download that app? I know it's free, but just take five seconds there.
You can go to your iTunes if you have an iPhone, or you can go to Google for an Android, and they've got apps for both of those devices. And just download it to your phone. It's free, easy to use, just takes a few seconds.
And just any listeners that are goose hunters, it actually sets up a scent cone so you know the degree, north, south, east, west, where the wind's coming, the velocity of the wind, and then what terrain it's going to cover. Because sometimes you get in the hills and your scent is going to flow with the wind. And so I just echo that. I was able to take a very nice buck last year simply because I knew what stand to pick out, because I had that Mossy Oak Scout tool.
And then another thing that it does, and I didn't know this until Mark Drury had let us know about this, but he's a huge freak when it comes to barometric pressure. He doesn't like to go out to hunt unless it's at a certain barometric pressure, and I think I'm not really up with all of that, but I think it's 31 and rising. And on that app, it actually will tell you the barometric pressure. So we use it for those purposes as well.
Doug, it's just been a pleasure. I could sit and listen to you and hear you talk about whitetails, for hours. And the funny thing about the show is, people say it's just like a couple guys sitting on the porch, sitting around the campfire, sitting in the truck because we're not hunting right now, and talking about whitetails. And
exactly.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And before you go, please give us any information you want about companies you work with, your show, how people can vote for you, because I think that's real important. Let's on the voting part, let's specifically tell people what they need to do to vote for you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. You can find us at www.trophyaddiction.com. There's a contact page there. We actually love it when people send us emails. You can ask us questions. We've got some gear you can buy on there. All our sponsors are on there that have helped us through the years. So you'll see which products that we use, from Scent Blocker to Rage Broadheads. The show is on Tuesday nights. It switches every single week. Tuesday nights at 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Mountain, and or I guess it's 4:30 Mountain Time. And it's called The Search. Every 2 weeks we'll be on it, but you can vote every week. You don't have to watch the show. You can go to www.votethesearch.com. You can vote once per week. That's it. And we would enjoy your vote. We hope that you would vote for Trophy Addictions. There's 8 teams. If you feel another team is better than us, go for it and vote for them. But we're really, really hoping to break some records this year with the search. And if we do, and we get our own show, then we'll be able to showcase more of the hunts that we've been filming over the last 3 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been truly an honor to have Doug Linebaugh on the show today from Trophy Addiction. Wishing everybody out there safe hunts and hunts that they truly find the joy of the hunt. Thank you for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.